And we're back here once again with another episode of the Iron Man Podcast, episode 509, with Miss Heather Veley, or Veley, actually. Which one is it?
Veley, you got it right the
Veley.
first time.
Good. And they black people are definitely known for their reading skills, as CNN had put out. Just kidding, guys. CNN is basically, what's crazy? I didn't think I live in a timeline where CNN would actually moderate a presidential debate well. I guess the first times for everything. Everyone can be surprised. But if you guys are interested in consuming all of the Iron Man podcast episodes from start to where we are at now, you can go and watch them on Rumble from episodes 1 to episode 499. Because at episode 500, we started putting them out on YouTube. So if you are on YouTube and you want to look up and you're like, whoa, this is already episode 500. Where do I start at? Well, go to Rumble. You don't have to follow. You could just go and watch all the content that we've done. And I'll be honest with people. I told everyone this. The episodes of the Iron Man podcast that I did from episode 1 to episode 499 been some of the best content I've ever done. And go and enjoy all the hours and hours long of content. There's one-on-one appearances. There's a ton of indie stuff there. Go have fun there. But that's only if you're on YouTube and you see the number is already really high and you're like, how do I get in? It's like, well, there's actually a way you can get in. You could just start watching now. So it doesn't matter. It's an either or thing. So,
or you could do the Oda route and say you don't necessarily need to start at episode 1. You could just start at episode 235. That's when stuff really gets good.
He was definitely sniffing some crack. I will say right now, like, there's very few anime you could probably watch like a random episode and just start picking it up. One Piece is probably not one of them. And the first arc when they're all coming together is really, really good. I wouldn't want to skip that for any reason, honestly.
I did watch the first couple episodes of One Piece, and it's like, okay, this is actually kind of a really cute, like, pirate anime. I don't want to say cute, but it's like a good pirate anime. And I honestly thought that they were going to keep the pink-haired kid up until, I don't know. But then it's like episode 5, it's like, all right, I'm staying at the Marines. Bye, Luffy. And it's like, okay, I guess we're doing this now. But
well, and as everyone knows, for the first time since I ever have anybody on, get to know them or origin story. So that way, if you ever come on for a second time, because as the ladies know, I have this riz with the ladies where I do it good one time, they always come back, and that's just the thing I got. Women just come back. So in case you never come back like my dad, well, at least you want to become a stranger. So how was your life growing up, actually?
Little bit of a troubled childhood. Parents divorced at 6, but that's a whole other thing. We're not going to get into that, or this is going to be Heather's therapy session. But other than that, childhood relatively normal given the circumstances. When I was in piano lessons when I was 10, when I read some of my first comic books, and they were my piano teacher's comic books, and I kind of sort of permanently borrowed them from her. Yeah, I was a bit of a dick of a kid. And then I started collecting some of the YuGiOh manga when I was a kid too, because, YuGiOh was a big thing. And I will say that YuGiOh manga was way more violent than I think any parent thought it would be. Like the original manga.
Yeah.
I still remember the one scene where it was evil Bakura. It was during that dungeon master scene, and he noticed that his one hand was being controlled by good Bakura. So he takes his hand and just stabs it on a castle. Ooh. And I remember seeing that as a kid, and it's like, oh my goodness.
The original Yu-Gi-Oh manga is really gruesome. People don't remember, in the anime, Pegasus got to live. In the manga, when they actually fought each other, he killed Pegasus. Actually, guys, when you rip someone's eye out, they die. It's just how it is.
And when people die, and when people are killed, they die.
Yeah, that's it. The Yu-Gi-Oh manga is really good. I was gonna end up buying it all in omnibus form. I know they have 3-in-1s. So that's what manga omnibuses are called, 3-in-1. So I'm actually going to start picking those up very soon because I wanted to just read them and binge them again. Because people don't remember the original Yu-Gi-Oh manga, at least for Duel Monsters, man, it was gruesome. It was really good. It was really, really good.
It wasn't just the physical violence too. Yami, he made people hallucinate into thinking that they were in a perpetual terror. I think the one that I remember the most was the do you remember the one story of the TV crew man?
Mhm.
And he wanted to do like this big story about bullying, and he
Yeah.
targeted Yugi to be the bully victim.
Yeah.
And Yami's punishment for that guy was for him to see everything in pixels. Like, he can never see anything the way the regular people can anymore. Everything is pixelated. And there's this one panel where you see his eyeballs, and his eyeballs are pixelated. It's like, oh, wow. That's actually, I would actually find that more horrifying than some of the body horror that happens in that series. And they were selling that to kids to sell a card game that didn't even become relevant until volume 5.
Yeah. Yeah, you know it's crazy how people say the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters anime doesn't follow any of the rules because they didn't have rules until Battle City. Like, even the author, honestly, it sold so well, he didn't even really know what he wanted to do with it. That's why it doesn't follow the rules. It doesn't really have set rules until Battle City. And even those are kind of, you know, whatever to some
I used to
degree.
collect the cards too because I thought the cards were cool, and I thought I just did what they did in the show until I had my friend is like, "Hey, I play Yu-Gi-Oh! Let's play Yu-Gi-Oh! Together." And I'm like, "Oh, cool!" And then we finally got to playing the game, and it's like, "Oh, wow, there are a lot of rules."
Yeah. You know what's crazy is people are talking about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game and how to get more people in. I think it's because I talked about this on one of the other episodes. It has to be because of the anime. And people don't understand the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime not only was a super big and super influential, that's probably the reason why a lot of people even know about it. Like, how many people do you know in your life that ever knew of Yu-Gi-Oh! Just through like the cards itself? Most people know about it because of the anime, whether you watch the first one, GX, 5Ds, Zexal, any one of those.
Little Karibo.
Yeah, you probably watched it because you saw one of the little monsters flying around fighting and you thought that was really cool. I mean, most people got into playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of the anime. And the reason why it's kind of fallen off now is because, well, if you don't have an anime as your driving factor, and if it's not good, it's not written very well, it's just not going to sell. It just won't. I mean, anime's fallen off a cliff for a long time. I could see why people don't watch it anymore. I haven't watched one fully through since like 2017, 2018.
I have not really seen much of the anime ever since high school, like early high school.
Which season do you remember falling off of?
Oh, gee, I don't even remember. I honestly don't even remember.
Holy shit.
It's I do think that there's only so much convolution that you can come up with when you realize we have gone so far up our own buttholes that we can't really go any further because they pulled some really weird stuff.
I'm pretty sure that's most animes.
Yeah. So I have to ask you, what's the craziest anime you've ever seen?
Shit. At the time, maybe still to this day, because it makes me think a lot, even though it's not really my cup of tea. It's probably Death Note. It's probably made me think a lot about, like, I don't know, just average things a normal person wouldn't think about, like the human life aspect to it. Like, if a person that could write your name and kill you, if he could do that, like, is that right of a person really to do? You know, and if someone did know that that person was doing it, what should they do with that information? You know, I feel like Death Note really, like, some of the stuff that they were going over in that show has really stuck with me throughout a long time. And it's not my cup of tea. I've watched it a few times. I was like, I don't get why people really like this. I get why it's good. It's just like, damn, that was one of those animes that were just way ahead of its time with how it was kind of thinking about how, like, it was going to progress its world. I think the problem generally with anime when it comes to a lot of people is people that watch anime overhype it to everybody. So when the person watches it, they don't understand why it's that good, or it's just not their thing. And then the person feels let down. That's why I never really hype anime to people sometimes. Because I generally don't like hyping things up to people for the most part. Because, you know, someone's taste is different, how they experience it is different, how they could be feeling that day influences how they might think about it, you know?
I think a better explanation is when it comes to us nerds, it's easy to hype anime, but when we're talking about normies who know absolutely nothing about anime, and we're like, oh my god, you need to watch Death Note, or oh my god, you need to watch Gurren Lagann, oh my god, you need to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and they're like, what? I think the easier way to ease people in is probably something like Studio Ghibli, you know.
Yeah, movies like Spirited Away will do it for you. Yeah.
Ponyo, House
Yeah.
Moving Castle, like that's a very easy way to ease people in. That's actually how I got my siblings into anime because I was super into anime, and of course I got the Ghibli movies. And no
What's up,
joke.
Jackson?
Oh,
What's up,
hello.
Jackson? How you doing, man? Little Creeble made good abridged content. Too bad he's a Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge was very fun. I will say that.
All,
I got out
all
I
Team
got out
Fortress
of watching that stuff. Yeah, for me, I got out of watching that stuff for a long time ago. But I remember how good that used to be. I can't believe people still make abridged content. That is such like a 2010 thing to
I
do.
know. Though I will say, I admit I will still rewatch Helsing Abridged just because it's so fucking funny. Because Helsing is another anime that is just so buck wild that it's entertaining because it is
Mhm.
crazy.
That was one of the animes I had never actually watched through. I know there's Helsing and Helsing Ultimate. I never watched any of them, but they did come on. I know of them. I just never watched any episodes of them, honestly.
I I gotta be honest, I only ever watched the first episode of Helsing Ultimate, but I have the manga and I have read the manga. And
Mhm.
from what I'm told, Helsing Ultimate is the true manga adaptation. But Helsing, the first series,
Yeah,
they got
yeah.
up until the Valentine brothers and then they just did their own thing because at that time the manga wasn't finished.
Mhm.
Tale as old as time.
So, because you mentioned comics earlier, you borrowed them from your teacher. So, at one point, when did you have your own?
So, oh, that's a good one. Ah, man, I need to think about that. I think three that come to mind for me. One was the Kim Possible comic books because they had a little graphic novel of like some Kim Possible adventures. I remember that one. I remember specifically Shiga was somehow brainwashed and she was wearing an apron, and Draken was obviously taking advantage of that.
Mhm.
Two was the graphic novel adaptation of Dracula, the Bram Stoker's Dracula, the actual novel.
Mhm.
And the third one, it was Spider Girl. It was that series where it was the daughter of Spider Man, and she's like a teenager at that point.
Mhm.
And I remember it, but it was like super weird. She at one point fights an orange dragon thing, and Daredevil's in there, and he's a vampire, I guess.
Comics and their ideas. That's sort of wild, actually.
Look, if you are not ready for some weirdness, then comic books are not for you. Like,
Shigo, top tier waifu. That is true. Shigo is a
uh,
waifu.
look,
Man,
look, I'm straight, but Shigo is pretty fine.
you know, Kim Possible. What a throwback. A lot of the stuff back in the day, really good stuff. It's crazy that you mentioned Saturday morning cartoons or watching cartoons to a kid. Now they're like, what? They just go on the tablet and watch anything they want. It's so ridiculous that you basically, whenever to catch anything new or your shows, you had to be there at that moment to watch them. Go through all these commercials, only to
Mhm.
get 20 minutes of content from anything. For anime, if you're watching anime filler arc, you have to wait weeks and weeks for this shit to end, just drawn out nonsense to get back to the main story.
Oh, kids these days don't know the pain of realizing that the anime you want to watch isn't on any streaming site because the streaming sites back then were kind of selective. So you had to go to a piracy website in order to watch what you want to watch. Like the
Mhm.
1990s JoJo's Bizarre Adventure OVA, I had to go to a piracy website to watch that
Mhm.
OVA because it just was not available. Same thing with Saint Young Men. Like I could not find it on streaming websites at the time when I wanted to watch it, and I had to
Mhm.
go to a piracy website.
Yeah, I had the same
Nowadays,
thing with Gurren Lagann. I had to just watch it on some jank site. And remember back then, they didn't even play the full episode. They split it into parts. Everything was in parts. Everything was like one, two, then it was two, two. It's like fucking hell. Man, getting anime back in the day or getting to be able to consume anime, I should say, was just
or
hard.
or if you could get away with it on YouTube, you had like the actual show in the little corner there, and then
Yeah.
it was a banner.
Yeah, that still happens. People still try to get away with it. They're not taken down. But anytime you see that, you're just like, wow, this gives me a throwback to like how you had to just watch anime, or you because uTorrent wasn't a thing. People forget back then. uTorrent didn't come around for a while, honestly. Being able to just like copy and paste a fucking thing into your search bar and get the episode and download it. Or piracy websites itself weren't even that big, really. There were like a few out there, honestly. So yeah, now you just turn on a site, go and start watching anime. It's like, goddamn, what a life that must be. Wait, I'm living in it.
You kids have it so easy.
You kids, because as you factor in, we're the same age. We were born the same year, actually. So that means you are basically a version of me in a different timeline. If I was white and I was also a nerd
and female.
True. Yes, actual female, not the hybrid messed up version that they try to put out there now.
I swear I have a vagina.
I do not. I've checked, you know.
I would be asking way more questions if you did.
So, because you mentioned comics, and I don't know how because you said you stuck with comics mostly throughout your entire life. You know how bad the industry is now, right? Because you've been aware of it. How do you, in your opinion, how do you fix it? It seems really bad. It's like shit has kind of hit the fan.
Honestly, if we want to keep the current industry, if we still want DC and Marvel around, and also Image, Oni Press, IDW, we gotta gut a lot of the glut. Because there are people in there who really should not be there. The biggest example I can think of is Heather Antos. And she got into Marvel with only, if I remember correctly, she only got in there with only one editorial credit at the time. And she edited, I think it was an anthology for mystery comics or something like that. And I believe it was Captain Cummings who pointed this out on one of his streams, that she really did not have the experience to be a Marvel editor, but she threw such a shit fit that she basically emotionally blackmailed everyone else to go along with her. And that is what has inspired a lot of the hirings. I'm not saying Heather Antos was completely the catalyst of it, because if Ethan Van Sciver and Clownfish TV are to be believed, both big publishing houses have been quietly trying to get rid of anyone who isn't a super lefty for a long time before the Heather Antos came on board. So I really feel like if you, to get back to the question, if you really want to keep the current publishing houses, they really need to do some serious gutting of either the bad actors or the people who are just not performing well. And I hate saying it because art is subjective, and there are some artists in like primarily IDW and Image where it's like technically their art is kind of out there, or their art is like maybe not classically good, but it's like they still produce a good product. Have you ever heard of W. Maxwell Prince? He's the guy who came up with the Ice Cream Man series.
I do not, actually.
But he has a very weird and psychedelic kind of writing, and a lot of people will say it's a little too pretentious, or it's not like really comic book level material, but I personally love his work, and a lot of people love the Ice Cream Man. So it does pain me to say, look, you got to gut the industry, but at the same time, it's like we kind of need to return to form. We need to go back to standards. We need to go back to, all right, you need to be at this level to be here.
I think what also needs to happen if they want to basically make sales happen is stop oversaturating the market every single week. I always tell people this: if you are getting into comics and you're new, just go type up League of Comics Geeks, their website. On there, you could even put like a wish list of any character that you want. You can even go and find older issues if you want to just put them on your wish list, and later on you go buy them. And you go to their new comics section, just the button where it says new comics, and just see and take off the filters. You don't need any filters. So this will show you how much stuff comes out. Take off all the filters. You can see how much stuff comes out between DC, Marvel, Image, Dark Horse, IDW, Boom. You have the other little smaller publishers that'll put out a title every now and again, like Scout Comics, Antarctic Press. Actually, you have Valiant, which basically does only a title a month now at this point. You know, you have all the reprints. People factor in that there's reprints of issues that sold very well, like Ultimate Spider-Man is an example. That's on like it's what, seventh printing. The Ghost Machine stuff from Jeff Johns and Image Comics, all those characters are on like their third printings for Red Coat, Geiger, and Rook Exodus right now. There's so much stuff coming out. You know, there's no way all that stuff is selling. There's absolutely no way. I couldn't believe it.
Well, you know? It's also like, imagine you're a brand new person who maybe you've read a few comic books and you're like, all right, I want to see what else is out there. You go into the comic book store and you just see all of this stuff and you have no idea where to even start. Like, I have a boyfriend and I am like, hey babe, we're right by this comic shop. Can we go inside and see what's up? And he's like, sure. And so I'm looking for some stuff for me. And then he goes off and wanders a little bit and he's just wandering through the aisles and he does pick out a few things, but it's just like a number 5, a number 4, but he's still not like really sure. And I tried to explain to him, you do realize you're going to be jumping in the middle of these stories. Yeah. And he's like, I'm sure I'll figure it out. But it's like, and it's like, I appreciate him for trying, but it is very confusing for someone who's brand spanking new for comics. It's like, where do you even start? And with the glut of stuff out there, like you said, it's exhausting and it's overwhelming for a lot of people, and even with diehard fans.
Yeah, I tell people, even if you were following the stuff that's going on right now, do you know how much stuff that doesn't get announced comes out? Trades, trade paperbacks, epic collections. You have pocket-sized stories that come out from stuff you've already collected. Like an example of it would be, there's the X-Men the Animated Series Omnibus, which is the adaptations of the original 90s cartoon. They released an omnibus. Then just this week coming up, they're going to release you know that DC Compact Comics idea that they were gonna do, when it's gonna be like manga size form stuff and self-contained stuff like this.
Oh my Jesus.
Yeah, so DC, they want to do like compact comics, which are basically like manga size form with like self-contained story arcs for a popular character. So like Batman's Court of Owls, you're gonna have Watchmen, All-Star Superman. There's some they're really gonna. I'm not even. Guys, I shit you not. They could do something for Hal Jordan, but the Green Lantern they chose to do it is some fucking random black lady. She's gonna get her own like compact comic for a story arc I just only could imagine no one bought. And then Wonder Woman's gonna get like Earth 1 or some shit. But like these, I would recommend to people because these can get you into a story arc. $10 is a nothing investment for a story that I think is good. But the problem,
that's another thing too. Like with comic books, it's like, what are they? $4.99 a pop now?
Yeah,
$4.99, $5.99, $6.99, yeah. And that doesn't sound like much until you consider the fact that that's just one issue, and most people who go into the comic shop, they get their pull list, and that is multiple books. So you can easily run up like $50 or $75 per stop. And what you were saying, that bundle, it's like, try and collect all of these different issues for like maybe $25, or just get the bundle book for $10. It's like, it's like, and again, like you said, it's a whole bunch of random stuff that people don't even know if they're even gonna like.
Yeah, and then that's
ultimately why I kind of stopped getting stuff fresh off the rack and decided to wait a little bit to hear, is this series worth my time? Because
when did you stop doing that?
I stopped doing that when I was 25, I want to say. So that's 4 years ago. So, and that's just because I kept buying these series and they just were not up to my expectations, or they just were crap. And it's like, I wasted all this money on these floppies. And it feels bad to say because I do legitimately want the industry to be around because I like comics. But at the same time, it's like, can we please just get the best of the best? Can we please make good comics worth spending my money on? I will happily give you my money if you give me something worth reading. That's why I mostly focus on indie comics now or manga, because at least they're producing good stories. Most of that is because they have no choice but to tell good stories, because if they tell a bad story, they're gone.
Yeah.
With manga, once a mangaka, sometimes you'll get the mangaka where it's like, why are you still around? You just produce crap.
Yeah.
But most mangakas, if they are not performing, their manager, their publisher is going to be like, okay, no, you got to go. Either you get good now or you got to go.
The other thing with indies is what that I do enjoy is there's no creative way to basically be shackled down with storytelling. You know, there's no create editor. There's no person leading. You're essentially the lead person. Tell the story you want. So I'll ask you, since you've consumed a good amount of indie stuff, is there anything, just in general, obviously, anything the indie creators could improve on as far as like maybe storytelling, art, coming across, to get move people into their stuff actually?
The one thing I will say is scheduling and getting more on a time schedule of when we are going to get stuff out. Like the biggest culprit of this is your boy Zach, Richard C. Meyer. But he is the king of late books, and one of his most recent books that came out, Rock and Roll Ninja, it is a fantastic book. Like, the story is fun, the dialogue is fun, the art is fun, but it took 2 years. 2 years for it to come out. And it's like, Zach, I love you, but 2 years is way too long. And some other indie creators, especially the ones who are at Indiegogo, it's just getting into, producing the comics in a reasonable time. Now, some other like indie publisher houses, like Iconic Comics, does not have this big of a problem.
Yeah.
Because the people who are in Iconic Comics, they are in it for the long haul. They genuinely want to make good comics and they want to get it out on time because they want to give a good product for their fans. But when you're like indie, it's like, all right, come on, let's get on a good schedule here. I know you want to make a good product, but if you want to be considered a reliable creator, you need to be reliable.
Yeah. And I think a lot of them, a decent amount of them, don't understand that, is given how, like we've mentioned earlier, there's so much out there. People have to understand there's just so much out there in terms of people not only starting campaigns, the current stuff that already exists, the current stuff that will eventually come out weeks after that. If you are not constantly able to put something out, you will be forgotten about unless you take so long, and then when your stuff does finally come out and it's really good, potentially, maybe, because we don't know if people are even going to open the package to even read the book, then potentially you might get some good word of mouth, because people have to understand that, like, a lot of people just move on when something isn't readily available for them. And then, if they even read the first issue and they didn't really like it that much, then they're probably thinking like, okay, why would I really like give this indie book my time? Because I think with indie stuff, since there's kind of like a more personal relationship a lot of people have with some of the creators here, even just talking about the stories can be kind of, let's say, hard because you have a slight connection to them. Because when people are able to talk about like Gail Simone and like Daniel Warren Johnson and like Joshua Williams, well, we don't know them. Like, I don't know Daniel Warren Johnson. He could be like fucking, I don't know, eating rats right now for all I know. I literally don't know. I don't know the guy. So I can talk about
it more interesting.
So I could like talk about his Transformers stuff right now, and I could basically say like, man, this shit's gay, it's trash. I don't know that guy. I've never interacted with him. I'll never meet that guy. But if you had a book, you came on here and I'm like, man, I could just shit on all over her book, but then she might hate me. I think that's the problem too. People got to get away from that. It's like the creator should understand you're not shitting on them. You're just talking about their product. That's what my opinion needs to change, actually.
Well, that's why I try to do, because I do run a comic book blog on Medium. And I do try to be fair. And there have been times where it's like, I really like this book, but there's this problem here, and I'm not entirely sure what's going on. Like, take a comic series that we kind of talked about in the backstage there, a Soul Finder. It's like, I do love that series, but I noticed with the third volume that there was a printing issue on it where it was kind of cutting off the bubbles here. And I mentioned that in my review, being like, hey, I don't know if this is just me, but there's something weird going on here. And in fact, Doug Ernst, he reached out to me and he's like, hey, can you show me a picture of your books so I can see what's going on there? And I showed him and he's like, oh, dang it. Like, according to him, it was a little chaotic with the third volume, and so they're fixing that problem. Hopefully that's not going to be a problem for the next volume, but he would not have known that that problem was a thing if I didn't say that.
Yeah.
So it's also like that you don't want to hurt their feelings and you want to get out of that because you want to be honest, but it's like some of the times the problems are there and you have to say it or else people won't know. Now, of course, you run the gambit of the person getting the criticism is either going to be like, oh, that's a problem. I didn't know that was a problem. Let me see what I can do to fix that. Or they're going to double down and be like, no, you're the problem. You're just reading it wrong. You're not understanding what I'm trying to say here. So, and I think it's that second person that keeps people from actually speaking the truth. And that's, if you go back and read some of my earlier reviews, I am a lot nicer to the books that I'm reviewing. Nowadays, I'm a little bit more open with my speech, but it is that second type of person that keeps people from being honest. And honest, you got to be honest. You can't just keep being nice all the time when it comes to reviewing a book, because that's how you get better books. If people need to learn from their mistakes, and you need to tell them if you need to fix this so your book will be better.
Another thing that people could probably do is actually, when you get the product, read it. Because a lot of people get to the point where they back it because they like the person, which is fine. I mean, people are doing this for money because they have to get the book done in general, and I get it. Like, it's like anxiety inducing, hoping your campaign funds. But it takes a lot to already get this done. It takes a lot of money investment to get everything to the point where they're getting the book to you. If you're not a collector, you might want to read it, because not only can you talk about it with friends, like you said, like, what's that old saying? When you grow up, tell a friend kind of thing. Spreading word of mouth, that's very good for indie creators. They don't have the built-in library of Marvel and DC and Image to have that word of mouth just from known characters. Because I feel like that, because a lot of like the people on Twitter, they'll be like, well, why is my favorite indie creator more talked about? Probably because you don't talk about their stuff. That's probably the reason why. People that are getting the books aren't reading them. It's very apparent, because when you ask them what they like about it, they'll be like, well, I like the art. Well, that's great. That's awesome. That means nothing in the grand scheme of things if the story wasn't consumed, because you don't even know if you're promoting a good product to somebody. Like, I understand collectors are going to be in this. That's just going to be the nature of the business. But if the audience isn't reading the books, then like, how? And it's hard. It's really hard to get someone interested in your stuff. I mean, it's hard to get people interested in new content creators. I get it, but that's the only thing that the audience needs to do, in my opinion, is just read the books more, and talk about them more. It's really all they can do,
And at that point, when it comes to like audience engagement of like, tell me how you feel, because there are going to be people who will tell you how they feel no matter what, but it's like, okay, give me some actual like constructive criticism. Is this good? Why is this good? Is it bad? Why is this bad? That's kind of a hard thing to prod out of people, because usually I've noticed this with even just regular people in TV or movies and stuff like that. And you'd be like, oh, how's this movie? And they're like, it's good. And I'm like, all right, anything else there? Oh, I just thought it was good.
Like, they'll just be like, yeah. They'll, like, the average person would be like, yeah, the action's great. I'm like, okay, all right. What the hell?
I'm the type of person where I will tell you a little bit more details of why I did or did not like the film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I did a review of The Boy and the Heron, the latest
Mm-hmm.
Studio Ghibli film, and I went into more in depth of, I did like it, but I did kind of think it was a little bit of a hot mess,
Mm-hmm.
just because I felt like it was two movies stitched together, and I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like it could have been a little bit more cohesive with the two different halves. And it's like, that's how I talk, but most people will just be like, "Oh, yeah, it was a good movie," or "It's not my thing."
Mm-hmm.
So it's like on the one hand, I can understand why people are apprehensive to give their opinion, but on the other hand, it's like most of the opinions are just, it's good.
Yeah, I also think that if a person is generally trying to become a creator, or they want their opinions valued and they want to review things, I think it's good to understand that, if you want to be respected, or at least have your opinion heard somewhat, then putting your opinions out there is the respect right there, because a lot of people aren't able to do that. Not a lot of people aren't able to convey their thoughts properly in a constructive, flowing, cohesive way,
Yeah.
And a lot of people have asked me over the years, like, well, how do I do it? Well, there's no real one way to. I think a good idea, like you said, right there, is probably the most important thing. Being able to actually convey your thoughts in a way that's not only constructive, but in your own way, where it comes off like it makes sense. And there's gonna be times you're gonna do it where you're gonna suck at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact that you even attempted to try it is something that you can work on. Because if someone's really passionate about something, I generally feel like someone's gonna be able to talk about it for a good amount of time. But in order to really get better at it, you have to kind of hone in on, okay, why is the story not working? Is the story not working because this character doesn't make it work? That's how you start conveying your thoughts better, is breaking down your individual thought within a thought, and then within a thought going to like another thought. But then again, I go off on tangents sometimes, so usually goes into that too.
And I think that's the big reason why a lot of fans are so upset with Marvel
Mm-hmm.
and DC now, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we've mentioned this earlier. I forget if we've mentioned this earlier in this episode, but before all of this identity politics and stuff happened in the comic book industry, fans did communicate their
Mm-hmm.
opinion about a story, and they were being very open and honest about why they did it or did not like a story. Like, there was this interview with Stan Lee, and he would talk about how he would remake their to the letters to the editor section that they used to
Mm-hmm.
have at the back of the comic books, and he would encourage fans to be a little bit more like less formal, be like, "Hey Stan, I liked your story," or "Hey Stan, I thought your story was awful, what were you thinking?" And that openness used to be a thing
Mm-hmm.
until these wackos took over the industry. And when anybody ever even tried to explain to them, "Hey, I think this story is really wonky, I don't think this works," they immediately get shut down with a, "Oh, you just didn't see it right," or "Oh, you're just being bigoted," or "Oh, you're just a hater," or something like that. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's disgusting, in my opinion, because it's like, these people are trying to tell you when something is working and not working, and you're just refusing to listen. And because of that, people are more afraid to give their honest opinions.
Mm-hmm.
But without the honest opinions, you can't improve your art form. And if the art form doesn't improve, then the product keeps getting worse and worse and worse until it starts getting to the point where even well-known creators like Ethan Van Sciver, after they've been let go, they're like, "Well, screw this, I'm just going to do my own thing," and then others follow suit, and then the industry starts deteriorating even more.
Well, the other thing is, when someone does their own thing, well, they're able to, potentially make more money, but there is the, price of doing it all yourself. But the big bonus of that is, well, back then, I think a lot of people don't understand is Marvel and DC, the people that run the part of the business with comics, from everything that I've been trying to learn over the years, is there's this kind of aura that you're kind of like working for them. All your fame essentially is tied to their character, their
Yeah.
creation. And I think the person going in knows that. Like they hopefully they come in respecting that. popular characters, trying to make sure the popular character gets a good story done.
Hopefully.
But anybody working should never really be around and telling people, hey, you really ain't shit. This is character that's the big dog here. It's like, yeah, way to really shoot your fucking workers in the foot. Like, what are you doing? Like, never do that, And I get it. Characters are bigger than the person sometimes writing them, but you don't want to let your writers know that. They need to have a clear state of mind to understand, hey, I can do this, I think that's the problem is they're treating people like they're expendable. They don't even pay the best. Aren't their page rates like what, 60 to 80 bucks a page? So what, 80 times 24? Yeah, that's terrible. You couldn't live off that. The thing is, you can literally make more money doing your own thing than working for them. It's either work for them, get pennies, but hey, you get a bunch of Twitter followers, or
you can make just as much money just working at Home Depot.
Yeah, actually, you probably make more money working at Home Depot at this point now. No, I'm not even kidding, people. I think Heather Antos, she said the number that she made at Marvel, being an editor, it equivalated to $30K a year. That's terrible. It's awful.
I think I make slightly less than what she made at Marvel, working now as a warehouse worker. Just slightly less. And it's like, that is sad.
Oh, like imagine that. Putting in all those hours for comics just to only make like $30K a year.
And you get a bad reputation to boot.
Yeah. It's actually just ridiculous how bad things have gotten. Now, like, or an example of a character that had to tap into them. The Flash. The Flash was at like 800 issues. They got it to 800 fucking issues of that character. Then earlier this year, for Dawn of DC, they chose to reboot the character. Not reboot, but they wanted to start back at number 1, and it's like, why? All because they wanted a bump in sales for a number 1. They sacrificed an 800 legacy milestone for that.
They're trying the Marvel method. Just release a whole bunch of number 1s. And of course, the collectors are going to buy the number 1s because maybe someday, eventually, the number 1s are going to be valuable. But the only way, at this point, the only way that a number 1 can be valuable is if there's like a limited print or limited run.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I currently own a series that did have a limited print. Beautiful Stories for Ugly Children. That had a limited print, and if you go on eBay, some of those issues do sell for like 25, 30, sometimes even 50 an issue, just because it's pretty rare. Or even like the original Flex Mentallo miniseries, but that's mostly because Vertigo got sued for that series. Do you know the story behind that?
Vertigo? No. What happened with that one?
Well, with Flex Mentallo, he was a character created by Grant Morrison, and I love telling this story because I think it's absolutely hilarious. So Flex Mentallo was based off of Charles Atlas, the old workout Charles Atlas ads, like how to get like the buff body. And Flex Mentallo's his origin story is basically that, where he worked out so much that he got his muscles could warp reality just by flexing them. And Mentallo was modeled after Charles Atlas. And when the Atlas company finally got word of it, they're like, hey, we're going to sue you. You're not allowed to use his likeness and blah, 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 blah. So that's why the Flex Mentallo miniseries got... Well, they did eventually reprint it in a graphic novel form, so you don't have to spend $100 on just one of the issues now. But still, the fact that even happened is a little crazy, in my opinion. And it's a funny story.
It's just, there's like the Mark Waid stuff people have heard throughout the years. That's crazy. How, remember he had like those alt-right comments? He's like, we would rather watch the industry burn to the ground than work with anyone on the alt-right. And it's like, what the fuck does that even mean?
I think the biggest tragedy with Mark Waid is he is a legitimately good writer. Like, I read Kingdom Come. He is a good writer.
Even the Tower of Babel. That's a good story too.
Yeah, he's a good writer. So it's like, why do you want
mentally insane?
It's like, dude, you're a big player. People want you to work on their books. Why do you want the industry to burn?
He's literally a nobody outside of comics. Him wanting the industry to burn is laughable because he's actually just a nobody. He's literally like it's like the person you know is only famous because of this, and you know any other thing they're nobody. I just blow my mind how someone like him would want the industry to go away when this is all he has. Wasn't this guy like crying and begging to come back, and they let him come back? He ended up doing World's Finest. He ended up doing Shazam. He's doing the big crossover event, right? The big summer event for DC right now, which is Absolute Power. Probably because he said this shit about alt-right. It's crazy. He had like that big giant fucking projection thing about Mark Miller. It's crazy how both their names are Mark, yet one Mark is a rich millionaire, successful and good looking, and his comics sell gangbusters, and not from Marvel or DC. He does
Well,
his
not
own
just
stuff.
that, like his ideas extend beyond comic books, like Kingsman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or even Civil
He
War.
did Kick-Ass, didn't he? Yeah,
huh?
he did. Yeah, he did Kick-Ass and
Yep,
Civil War, right? Yeah, he got
even
his big break with Civil War, and then he stinted it to his own stuff.
Even though Civil War, the comic book, was way different from the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
That's for several reasons. Or Old Man Logan. He did Old Man Logan too.
You're right. Yeah, he
So
got
like,
his break
at least
with
with Mark Miller, you know him for more than just that.
Yeah.
Or even Todd McFarlane, like he has his toy line, and Spawn is a household name at this point, and a black character. So
it's just blows my mind how he was talking about how, man, you're like those Facebook posts where he just had a complete meltdown because Mark Miller was so much more successful than he was. He said some bullshit like a dying star. What the okay? Well, Mark, I think that's you. Everything he said, he thinks about himself. He's just projecting that onto Mark Miller. So it's like, what the fuck? Wait a minute. One of you is successful. The other one is kind of somewhat living off of their past accolades.
And you want to know the most embarrassing part? He's twice as old as we are.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is embarrassing. Like, I can't even imagine acting like he does now. Like, me at 29, I cannot imagine acting like Mark Waid is acting. And he's significantly older than the two of us, which makes it even sadder. That is even sadder.
Look, it's because people generally think that age comes with wisdom and you get more knowledge. No. Some people are just stupid when they're younger, when they're a bit older, and when you're this old, he's still stupid. Like, someone like him is just never gonna not be who he is, because this is just I don't even know what's wrong with him. It's so crazy how
Trump
back in the day, he has that bad. He has about the entirety of the right in general. I think all of them do.
I lost a few friends to that too.
Really? What happened?
Long story, but the big factor is that they went so far in, oh my god, everything is alt-right. And it's like, okay, time to mute you on Facebook.
Oh, I had there was a few people that were like, if you are voting for Trump, please just unfriend us right now. And you know what? I actually just did, because that is I'll say this. Hey, that's what you want, I will give it to you. I'd rather not have a whining piece of shit in my fucking feed on Facebook constantly saying useless things like that. It's pointless, you know?
I just had to completely disable Facebook in 2020. I just had to do it because that year was just one big shit show. Not just for everything in general, comic books, movies, pop culture, everything. That year was just one big shit show, and I just had to mute it all. It really says something when because I was on Tumblr at that time too. It says something when Tumblr was relatively okay compared to Facebook.
Man, I haven't heard of Tumblr in years. Crud! What a good lord! I know it's still around like Kiwi Farms is, but goddamn, Tumblr. Oh, Tumblr. Oh, good lord.
Apparently, Tumblr got a lot better once they did that big like
Exodus
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tumblr got a lot more sane ever since they got rid of the porn.
Yeah. Imagine what a website could be without porn, right? Right, Twitter, right, Elon? Fucking hell, ban those porn bots. God damn. Fucking hell, man.
My my dad has an Instagram, and he keeps complaining that the only people that he has like his own pencil company, and of course his Facebook links with Instagram, but he keeps complaining that that basically cam whores keep trying to, shoot their shot at him, and he's like, no, go away, ew. And he's like, why are all these prostitutes trying to talk to me? I'm just on Instagram to see my daughters and see what they're up to.
Yeah, you probably got to tell him, hey, Dad, I don't think these are real. This is just bots.
Oh, he knows. He knows
Okay.
they're most likely bots. I call them Insta vultures.
Because the thing that you're known for is your website.
Yep.
So why did you make it in general? What was the straw that broke the camel's back? Were you like, man, these other internet journalists are terrible, so I'm just going to just one-up them?
The origins are way more mundane. So it was back in, I believe, 2019. And I figured maybe I want to learn a new skill set. And I saw this package for copywriting. So I'm like, all right, I'll get this copywriting, like learning experience package. And it came with a free membership to Medium. And so it's like, well, what do I do with this Medium membership? And I just thought to myself, well, I read comic books. Maybe while I'm learning the whole copywriting thing, I'll just start blogging about comic books I've read. The copywriting thing did not work out, but I continued with the blog. And then after a year, it's like, okay, I'll stop, work on a few other projects. And then a couple more years pass. I get COVID for the first time, and I'm like stuck in my apartment for a week. And then I remembered, oh yeah, I have that blog again. So I started blogging more again, and turns out there were more people on Medium who wanted to hear more about comic books that I've read. So I just been keeping at it. So it wasn't even really like a fuck the man kind of thing. It was just, I wanted to do it because I like writing and I like comic books. That it really is as simple as that. It's very boring.
No, basically just in 2020, you were just kind of bored and you were just like, F it. I'll do it myself. Well, how have you evolved it now, actually?
When I first started, it was strictly like once a week I would do a review on a book that I've read, and that's how I've been doing it. And after that whole COVID episode, I decided to get a little bit more fluid, where it's like, all right, I have this series called Comics I've Read, where it's just like a bundle of different comics I've been reading at the time. And I would just give my quick opinions. And then it's like, okay, how about I do a few think pieces? Like I've done a more in-depth view of Swamp Thing and more relating it to what's going on in my own life. I did an interview with R.J. Shaw, who is the Fourth Age, who did a book called Thomas Valiant. Really, really liked it. He's got a couple more books, so go and check that out. And I just expanded more as I got more comfortable with my writing style. And I've even done a few articles that had nothing to do with comic books. Like I did an article about the realities of actually living alone. This was before I got my boyfriend, or the reality, or my true opinion about the red pill and stuff like that. So it's
Which one did better? The reality of the red pill, the living alone one?
Actually, I have my stats right here, so I'll see right now. I think I got more hits on the living alone, 16 views, 13 reads. And where is it?
That's actually a pretty decent ratio. They're like, yeah, you get as many people view it as you had read it. That's interesting. They're like, you're probably like, man, they wanted to read about a white lady living alone.
Well, it's my problem with the red pill. 520 views and 251 reads.
Actually insane.
I mean, I guess my expectations are a little bit more lower because I see YouTube views and it's like, wow, my ratio is not nearly as big. But then I gotta keep reminding myself this is a blog. And I do occasionally get some very interesting responses. And that red pill article, I did get a couple of interesting responses.
what were the general what was your general thing about the whole red pill? I would say movement. It's not really a word. It's not really a movement. I would say more like a group think. Is that what you would call it? You know, more like a mindset.
So pre 2020, I was way more on. Okay, hear me out. I'll walk you to where I'm going here. So pre 2020, I was way more on the side of red pill. And that's because before 2020 and all that shit show happened, the red pill was more focused on actual men's issues, like men mental health and suicide, like divorce courts. They still are about that. Or that that documentary, The Red Pill, with that woman who she started the film as a feminist and then she stopped being a feminist towards the end of the film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was way more on board with the red pill pre 2020, but once 2020 hit, that's when the podcasts started, especially with Fresh and Fit. And the red pill suddenly became much more focused on dating. And it stopped being about, let's talk about some serious men's issues that are going on now. And it started to become, how do I get bitches? It's like every single red pill podcast suddenly started becoming, how do I get bitches? Women are just whores. Women are just wanting to empty your pockets. And it's like, okay, yes, there are some evil women out there. I will give you that. There are some very bad women out there. However, that is not the vast majority of women. There are good women out there. And B, this is effectively fear-mongering because there are some very lonely men out there who either have not gotten a girlfriend or had some very bad experiences with women who are going to see this fear-mongering, and it's not going to make them more confident. It's actually going to make them a lot more resentful towards life and resentful towards women, which I don't think is ultimately a good and healthy thing. Because while women do have a very influential role in society, not like when it comes to the individual man, not all of his problems are caused by women. Like sometimes you have shit luck, sometimes it's you missed an opportunity or you picked the wrong choice for like a college or for like a trade or something like that. And just life happens. Not everything bad in your life was caused by a woman. And that's what a lot of the red pill content I'm seeing now has turned into. And again, there are very serious issues for men
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
do need to get to. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we need to talk about the actual root cause of men's mental health. Like, I would love to live in the world where the male suicide rate wasn't as high as it is, or that men are not dropping out of college. Like, I want men to go to college so that it can better their lives. I want men to have the drive and the lust for life to actually take the world by its balls and make their lives worth living. I want confident men,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think that this current red pill movement is going into the right direction.
Because for me, it was seeing all this stuff play out. Because I was more like a lurker for a lot of stuff outside of the usual content that I always did, but I always kept tabs on a lot of other things. For me, it always just boils down to any time any issues with women are ever brought up, there are just so many women that don't even see what some of them are doing as issues. That's my usual thing, right? So
Right.
an example of it would be, well, it's usually, man, it's a lot of them, honestly. It's like picking the right guy. There's the thing with like, how do you keep a man? Like the big one, as you've seen on Twitter, is the whole divorce one. It's like, there's the common trend of like people getting married, having two kids, woman leaves. It's like that's a problem. Like we should be able to talk about that. And then a bunch of women just get so angry. And it's like, what is the point of even trying to fix an issue if people get this angry about them? It's like, hey, we're just trying to like talk about them, So I understand where a lot of the red pill stuff is coming from. We should be able to talk about the things. And like you mentioned before, I think it's like a 95-5 thing where it's like now it's turned into like, well, all women are bad. It's like, no, that's not it. No.
No.
There's big issues that we need to talk about, but we can't just demonize all women or men.
For some reason, this is why the feminist movement has become such a joke, because back in the day, there were some very serious women's issues. Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't until the 90s where a woman couldn't get a credit card by herself. She had to have her husband.
Yeah.
Or, I know a lot of people are not be happy with this, like the birth control pill. Like, that, like...
Wasn't that mostly enforced by men? I'm pretty sure it was mostly enforced by men, right?
The birth control pill?
Pretty sure.
Well, Planned Parenthood was started by a woman who wanted to, implement some eugenics, but that's a whole other story.
Planned Parenthood is trash. Let's just say that. Terrible.
Back in the day, it was perfectly legal for business to say, hey, we're hiring a position. If you're a man, you're going to get paid this. And if you're a woman, you're going to get paid this. And it's like, It's the exact same position. Why are you paying two different rates for a man and a woman?
Because what people have generally broken that down into is like, if a woman ever gets pregnant,
I'm talking about like back in the 60s.
Yeah.
When it was perfectly legal. Nowadays, yes, the pay gap thing, it is oversimplified because it's not taking into account the fact that women do choose positions where they have more flexibility because of life planning and whatnot. But back in that day, that was an actual serious issue. Mm-hmm. And so it's like feminists did fight hard for these issues that were issues.
Yeah, those were issues that matter. Yeah.
But now feminism is all about, men are ruining my life. I stubbed my toe and it's men's fault. Yeah. And I've noticed that with a lot of those red pill channels, they're basically that, but for men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no balance. We can't talk about women issues because there's a bunch of fucking women that just can't even understand things that they've even done because no one's ever confronted them and talked to them about it. So when you bring up the fact that, hey, random girl, you probably dated like 5 guys and they all didn't work out, you end up having 2 kids somewhere through this. You don't see a problem with that? And she'll just start freaking out. It's like, the fact that people get, not just even women, guys too, the fact that people freak out that hard over stuff that they've consciously are doing, but they can't properly communicate why they did the things didn't happen a certain way. It's bad.
On the flip side, a guy who is a player and he has 2 different baby mamas and it's like, why are you trying to lecture me about my dating preferences when you literally have 2 baby mamas who are chasing you down for child support?
Yeah.
And it's like, it goes both ways. And neither side is willing to acknowledge it goes both ways. Both genders have their pros and cons. Everybody is flawed. And
like the whole OnlyFans thing. Like, guys will shit on girls for OnlyFans, but pay for them. That's always like for me. I don't really care if a girl has an OnlyFans account because I get it. Like money's tough, bills are rough. What I would say, I wouldn't take advice from that girl on dating or anything if she has an OnlyFans page. That's where I kind of draw the line. You can have it, but like if I'm taking your opinion, like if you're giving out like life advice on like dating and like not being a whore, it's like, okay, that's where we gotta draw the line at. That's a little too much there, you know. But I don't begrudge women for having an OnlyFans page. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me, you know.
Think Before You Sleep actually made the exact same point that you made, where some of these OnlyFans models, they will say on different podcasts, ever since they go on like Fresh and Fit or they go on other like red pill channels, their income on OnlyFans goes up. So it's like these men will watch them and they will love to see the guys like crap on them, but at the same time, the same men who want to watch these women get put down are also the same ones who are signing up for the OnlyFans to watch them do their thing on OnlyFans.
Yeah, because you mentioned the loneliness thing. A lot of people, not only just are lonely, but I would say don't know how to handle being lonely because I don't know. Like, a lot of people don't like Andrew Tate, but he did say something that did make a lot of sense a long time ago. Like, you know how he said he keeps himself busy with doing stuff? Well, that's how you don't be lonely. You do stuff to not be lonely. A lot of people kind of like, even if they don't have any like issues, some people have issues like with money and like job. That's perfectly normal life shit.
Like,
it seems like a lot of individuals have a lot of loneliness from a lot of odd things that they don't know how to basically get past. Like, it's fine some days you don't feel happy. There's days you're not going to be your best. That's fine. That doesn't mean that you're a terrible person. It doesn't mean you're like going to lose your life. It doesn't mean anything. It's just some days you're sad, some days you're happy. You have to kind of basically have hobbies as outlets to push yourself and put your mindset into something else to get yourself out of that. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people just go, well, I'm sad and I'm fucking depressed. And it's, are you sad and depressed, or are you just having a bad day? That's two different things, actually.
yeah,
You know?
that's another thing that is just
A lot of people just can't handle being lonely. That's really just all it is. A lot of people just can't handle being alone. It's just
yeah.
mostly
And
what
even,
it boils down to.
and the crazy thing is, they act like this is like a big modern issue, and it's like, no, people back in the day, they've had to learn how to be alone. They've had to learn how to be bored.
Yeah, internet back in the day. What they do, fucking just throw rocks in rivers or some shit. I don't know what they did.
Honestly, that sounds like a lot of fun. Just, just chilling with your homies, throwing a rock in the river.
Like, that's kind of what it's boiled down to for me. It's like, I think a lot of people just, for me, can't handle being alone, don't know how to be alone, have to understand that, hey, not every feeling someone has needs to be talked about. I've told people this before. They get a little mad at me, but not every feeling I have needs to be explained to people. It doesn't at all. Like, what are you looking for? Like, self-validation for everything you feel? It's like, that's like narcissistic on levels I don't even want to even begin to start going down, you know?
I mean, that's the reason why a lot of us nerds get into nerd shit in the first place. Like,
yeah.
Like, this is going to sound very, very harsh, but nerds tend to be a little bit more on the introverted side. They tend to not exactly be the chads and whatnot, but we find ways to cope with that loneliness, and we cope with comic books, we cope with gaming, we cope with manga and anime, and we just learn to we learn to live with the loneliness like that, which is, again, another reason why it kind of sucks that some of it's kind of turning to crap.
Yeah,
it's like you're taking away the thing that's making my life a little less sucky. Like, stop doing that.
The escapism that people went to because of they weren't like the jock in school, they just had a bad life, or it was, parents issues, anything it could be. That same thing is now getting polluted with stuff that you came there to get away from. And that's how crazy life has been, honestly. But yeah, it was great to have you on for the first time. I'll shoot a few more things before we head out. The first thing is, do you have anything planned in 2024 that you want to let the audience know about, actually?
Well, we talked about indie comics. I'm actually in the process of writing a comic.
That's awesome. Okay. And when you get paid, make sure to give me all the royalties for reparations, actually.
You're going to have to pull that out of my pasty white hands.
Wow. Good Lord. Man, that'll be nothing, actually. Because as people know, you make nothing in comics. It's crazy how there's so much drama in comics.
2 pennies. I'm going to fight to keep those 2 pennies.
People make nothing in this, really. Like, outside of like the top people, even in the indie sphere, you don't make a lot of money here. I don't get why there's so much drama in general. People are fighting over nothing. But that's how guys are. Guys are very competitive, and I understand, and I'm competitive too. But it's like, man, the amount of drama that's in this specifically, for the amount of money you're gonna end up potentially making, is like worthless. It's
nonsense. It's gonna be weird that I'm getting at the comic industry. That's really there.
So, last thing I'll ask you, is there any shout outs you want to give to anyone in particular, and anything else you want to say before you head out?
Well, I guess shout out to Doug Ernst. He's got Soul Finder #4 that's going to come up on Iconic Comics website.
Yes.
And shout out to RJ Shaw for getting me in contact with an artist who is willing to work with me for my comic book.
That's awesome. Okay. And yeah, thank you guys for checking out this episode of the Iron Man podcast, and we will see you guys